The wind howled across the open plains of Montana, carrying with it the lonely cry of a newborn that echoed through the walls of the Harper Ranch. Eli Harper, a man once known for his strength and calm, now stood helpless by the cradle, his hands trembling as his baby's wails cut through the winter air. Just weeks ago, his wife Anna had passed in childbirth, leaving behind nothing but a soft blanket, a wooden cross on the hill, and a man learning that even the strongest shoulders can buckle under grief. His baby girl, Grace, hadn't stopped crying since dawn. Her tiny face was red, her voice hoarse, and Eli, exhausted and desperate, had already tried everything: warm milk, rocking, singing the lullabies his wife used to hum, but the child's hunger was something he couldn't fill. He whispered, "Please, baby, don't cry," his voice breaking as tears streaked through the dirt on his face. Outside, the ranch stretched empty, snow dusting the fences and the horses huddled in the barn. The world felt as cold as the wind that swept through the cracks of his lonely home. Eli wrapped Grace in the last quilt Anna had made, the one stitched with love and tiny blue flowers, and stepped out into the storm, determined to find someone, anyone, who could help his child survive. The nearest neighbor was a mile away, a woman named Clara Moore. She'd been widowed the year before when her husband never came back from the mines. Quiet, private, and kind, Clara rarely spoke more than a few words when she came into town for supplies. Yet everyone knew her for her gentle nature and her courage. She'd been raising 2 little goats, keeping a small garden even through the hard months, and living in the shadow of her own sorrow. Eli had barely exchanged greetings with her before. Life on the frontier left little room for social graces, but tonight, his boots trudged through snow toward her cabin with only one thought in mind: save Grace. The wind bit at his face, and he shielded the baby close to his chest, whispering against the cold, "Hold on, little one. Just hold on." By the time he reached Clara's cabin, his knuckles were white and his breath came in ragged clouds. He knocked once, twice, and the door creaked open. A faint light glowed inside, revealing Clara, her hair braided loosely over her shoulder, a shawl draped around her shoulders, eyes widening as she saw the bundle in his arms. "Eli Harper," she said softly, surprise and concern mixing in her voice. "What brings you? Oh my, is that—" Before she could finish, Grace let out a weak, pitiful cry that made Clara's heart twist. Eli's lips trembled as he spoke. "She won't stop crying. She won't feed. I don't know what else to do." He looked like a man defeated, his tall frame sagging with exhaustion and grief. Without a second thought, Clara stepped aside and said, "Come in before the wind freezes you both." Inside, the cabin was warm, the fire casting a soft glow over the wooden walls. Clara guided him to sit by the hearth as she gently took the baby from his arms. "She's hungry," Clara whispered, recognizing the familiar cry of a child in need. She had lost her own baby a year ago, and though the memory still stung, the sight of this tiny life reignited something she thought had died with her. Loss, a mother's instinct, a heartbeat of compassion. "Eli," she said quietly, her eyes meeting his, "I still have milk. I've been feeding the orphaned goatlings with it. I can help her." Eli's eyes widened, the relief flooding through him so suddenly he nearly broke down then and there. He managed a shaky nod, unable to find words. Clara sat near the fire, holding Grace close, humming softly as the baby finally began to feed. The crying eased into tiny sighs, and within minutes, Grace's small body relaxed in her arms. Eli watched, unable to move, as the miracle unfolded before his eyes. His jaw clenched and tears rolled silently down his face. Tears of gratitude, of grief, of a man who'd thought hope was buried with his wife. When Clara looked up, she saw a man stripped of pride and armor, a father who would have given anything to save his child. She smiled faintly and said, "She's strong, Eli. She's got her mother's spirit, I can tell." The night stretched long and quiet, filled with the crackle of the fire and the baby's gentle breathing. Eli sat by the hearth, his eyes heavy but his heart lighter than it had been in weeks. "Clara," he finally said, his voice low, "I don't know how to thank you." She shook her head softly. "You don't need to. No one should face loss alone out here." He looked around her small cabin, modest, tidy, filled with touches of warmth and strength, and realized this woman had built her world from ashes, just as he was trying to. As the storm howled outside, Grace slept peacefully for the first time since her mother's passing. Clara handed the baby back, their hands brushing, and in that small touch, something unspoken passed between them, an understanding deeper than words. Eli looked into Clara's eyes and saw not just kindness, but courage, a quiet heart that had endured as much as his own. He said softly, "You've done more than save my baby. You've given me a reason to believe again." Clara smiled faintly, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Sometimes, Eli, God sends help in the quietest ways." From that night on, Eli found himself visiting Clara's cabin more often. At first, it was for Grace's sake, but slowly, the visits turned into shared breakfasts, conversations, laughter that neither of them had known for a long time. The snow began to melt, the plains turned green, and the world seemed to breathe again. Neighbors whispered that the widowed rancher and the quiet neighbor were often seen together at the market, his baby girl nestled in Clara's arms, and though no one dared speak it aloud, they all knew that love had found its way back into two broken hearts that had thought it gone forever.